I would like to be the first one to welcome you all to today's presentation of the President's Fellows on institutionalizing the core values here at UMB. These students have been working so hard, and I cannot stress that enough, over the past year to not only research this topic, but to write a white paper and then create a presentation to help improve our campus as a whole. And so I have been so proud to work with these students over the past year, and I'm really excited for them today to share with you what they've learned throughout their research and to be able to inspire you on how you too can institutionalize UMB's core values so that they remain durable into the future. With that being said, I would like to introduce our 6 fantastic fellows, and we're going to allow them to mute and unmute themselves as they slowly come alive in the video screens. Wonderful. And so we will go ahead and start and allow them to do it.
Hi, my name is Jamad Abdi, and I'm a third-year student at the University of Maryland School of Dentistry. And one of the reasons why I chose to partake in this project is because I think it's important to be able to function in an interprofessional team and carry this knowledge and skills into our future practices. Ultimately, we should be able to provide interprofessional care as part of a collaborative team focused on improving patient outcomes.
Hi, my name is Medna Bhatt, and I'm a second-year student at the School of Pharmacy. And I was interested in this topic because I think it's important that we learn how to work as one institution so that we can deliver the best level of education to all of our students.
Hi, my name is Marina Gettes, and I'm a current student in the Clinical Nurse Leader program at the School of Nursing. I believe that the core values directly influence the culture of the university and the experience that we all have while at UMB.
I joined this project because I was interested in how I could help develop the communities that I'm a part of. I work with a nonprofit in community development in STEM, and so I wanted to see how I could transfer that insight over into this project.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Camboris. I'm an MD PhD candidate in the School of Medicine in the graduate school. I originally signed up to do this project because I served in the United States Army for over 10 years, and I really understand how important it is for all the personnel involved in an organization to follow the same values and how critical it is to accomplishing a mission. I wanted to be a part of institutionalizing the core values at UMB so that they're durable for future students and faculty.
Dr. Jarrell is here, and so we're going to give him a second to give his welcome. So Dr. Jarrell.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Greg didn't recognize me because with the wonders of technology, I had to sign in as the University of Maryland and it didn't have my name. So I apologize for looking like an institution instead of a person, but I am a person. Welcome and thank you. I was actually looking forward to introducing you, but you all beat me to it. Because each of you has a really interesting background. And of course, I had the pleasure, and I think twice, once with Dr. Ward, of meeting with you and hearing about this. Just as a background for all of those listening, these white papers have been in place for 7 or 8 years. I don't know the exact count. Greg, do you know how many years it's been?
I think, now Courtney Jones-Carney will have to correct me, but I think you're right, about 7 or 8 years. We've been doing this.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time. And I think you had heard President Herman before, and I will repeat it, that the actions that result from these white papers are quite significant for the university. They really do inform us, not only about the scholarly activity you've done and sort of a read on a particular topic in the university, but then also a series of actions that we will take as a consequence of your scholarly activity. So I have had the pleasure of reading through what you've written, and I found it very interesting and a number of very applicable actions to take. So I'm actually really prepared and waiting to hear about this. You know, I was reading through your backgrounds, and each of you, of course, is in a school at this university. And what's so interesting is as I was reading through them, I was thinking, well, you know, COVID's affected all of you. And then I went through there and I thought, well, it had a big effect on dentistry, didn't it? And of course, pharmacy has converted to telemedicine, telehealth very efficiently. Nursing, I know they're still very active in a variety of diseases, of degrees and different diseases. And then there's the graduate school where we moved to remote research. Who's ever done that before? But we hope to get you back soon. And I see both Adrian and Nina are both native Baltimoreans, which I found to be wonderful to have on this panel. And of course, also your other expertise that both of you have developed. So I want to thank you for all the hard work you've done. I want you to know it will fall on very receptive ears. And we've got a lot of planning to do, listening to what you've said. I also want to make one other comment and then let you get on with things. I couldn't tell, Greg, but is Mr. Augustine on the call as well?
No, not yet, that I know of.
Okay, well, I think he got to meet with all of you, did he not? And Norm is one of these remarkable people in terms of his world experience. And for those of you outside this group, he was chairman and CEO of Lockheed Martin. He was assistant secretary of defense, I think, for a while, and really an internationally known star, and ran a really good company. And one of the things that he said he regretted was when he walked to UMB, he saw our core values on the wall. And he said, you know, that's phenomenal. I wish I'd have run my company by my core values, and it never occurred to me to make it such a campaign. Now I've read what you've written, and I know we've got some work to do on that, but I also know that we've made a lot of progress on that too. So I want to be optimistic and yet be challenged to make sure we make the next step in this process. So thank you for all the work you've done on this, and I'll sit back and listen for a while. So thank you, Greg.
Hi, I'm Nina Marks. I'm a second-year student at the School of Law, and I got involved in this project because I have a background in education policy, and I wanted to better understand how the university that I'm a student of was embracing its core values.
Thank you. And I can't stress it enough how amazing these students have been. These 6 fellows were selected after careful consideration and a very competitive process, and they have absolutely soared throughout this entire project. And so with all of that being said, I am going to step back and give them the microphone and everything. So here we are. The show is yours.
Great. So again, my name is Nina Marks from the School of Law. Our presentation today is going to outline the white paper that we wrote on the university's implementation of our core values. To do so, we will first explain what we understood the core values to be and how they relate to the charge that we were given, and more expressly what that charge was. We will then explain the values that guided our research projects, our process, and recommendations, followed by what we found through our research and the recommendations we are making, which are informed by our findings. Next slide.
Okay, so the core values represent the culture of the institution and the quality of individuals leading, learning, and serving within that institution. So there are 7 core values that UMB has, and they can be seen in this slide. And the values were instituted to help define our campus culture and act as a guiding force in our everyday decisions. While the definitions of these core values are clear on paper, institutionalizing them has been a challenge. In an institution as large as UMB, it's difficult to have one set of values consistently embodied throughout each school. Their definitions can be found in the core values booklet, so I'll just give a brief definition of each. Accountability is that the university is committed to being responsible and transparent. Civility is that the university expects interactions to be professional, ethical, respectful, and courteous. Diversity is that the university is committed to a culture that's enriched by diversity and inclusion, so in a broader sense, in its thoughts, actions, and leadership. Excellence is the university is guided by a constant pursuit of excellence. Knowledge is that the university's industry is to create, disseminate, and apply knowledge, and of course, leadership, which is that the university strives continuously to be a leader and to develop other leaders. Next slide.
When we took on this project, our first step was to identify our responsibilities. We felt that the core values had clear definitions outlined by the university, so we felt that it was our responsibility to evaluate the current practices for institutionalizing core values and to recommend interventions to better incorporate those values into our practices and policy. Ultimately, it was our goal to achieve this uniformly across all 7 schools. Next slide, please. With our goals and responsibilities laid out, we also want to be explicit in stating some of the central principles that we upheld in our approach. So first and foremost, we want to be clear in stating that our assessment represents the student perspective. While some of the issues that we address throughout this paper, both positive and negative, affect faculty and staff as well and may represent some of those opinions as well, we can only speak for students. And ultimately, approaching this project, we felt that UMB has a responsibility to provide us students with a high quality of education and train us to be competitive in our chosen disciplines, and that this could be accomplished by living out those core values. Next slide, please.
As we were coming up with our approach, we were dedicated to making our approach evidence-centered. First, we meticulously reviewed the core values as described in the University of Maryland, Baltimore's handbook. We then focused on evidence-based practices that included defining culture and the importance of culture in an organization or community, organizational cultural strategic planning and integration, communication and marketing, and investigating what other universities or programs are doing to incorporate strong culture in their communities. We attended all of the President's Symposium lectures on organizational culture and conducted follow-up interviews with several speakers for further understanding of their respective topic and perspective. We spoke to Interim President Dr. Bruce Jarrell, as well as the leadership of the respective 7 schools. With this systematic approach, we were able to devise the recommendations that will be later discussed. Next slide.
So first, we wanted to review the positive side of our findings. In this section, we aim to highlight the implementation of core values in each school that we felt really embodied the culture that the core values aim to promote. So each of the following examples represents not only that culture, but practices that can be implemented across 7 schools, regardless of the disciplines. Next slide, please.
The School of Medicine was selected to represent excellence and accountability because of the work under the Cultural Transformation Initiative. The goal of the CTI is to ensure that we have a safe, respectful, and inclusive work environment for everyone. Under this initiative, Dean Reese has requested a full investigation into pay and promotion disparities. How faculty progress to and are evaluated in the tenure track is also investigated. There has been additional criteria included in the tenure track to allow access for faculty that work in collaboration with others, such as biostatisticians and veterinarians. The idea here is to contemporize what it means to be successful and improve how these faculty members are evaluated for tenure. Finally, assessment of the culture of the University of Maryland the University of Maryland Medical Center and the University of Maryland School of Medicine is included in this initiative. The goal is to ensure a civil, collaborative, and equitable environment for all to work in. In investigating my school, I found that we have a strong implementation of civility as well. Students are trained annually on unconscious bias and cultural competence to ensure that the decisions we make as future physicians are research-based and not influenced by our own prejudices. We also take the course Intro to Clinical Medicine throughout the 4-year process, in which we are exposed to the clinical environment and have professional behaviors and interactions modeled for us. We also learn how to interact with patients from a very early point in our medical education. Finally, medical Spanish and LGBTQIA+ curricula has been implemented and expanded so that we can be well-versed in the needs of these communities. Next slide, please.
Okay. After speaking with Dean Dr. Jane Kirschling, Dr. Mary Mills, and Dr. Jeffrey Ash at the School of Nursing, I was thoroughly impressed by the efforts to engage UMB's core values. I will humbly speak about just a few of the core values, but please understand that this is not an exclusive list of all of the efforts that the School of Nursing engages in regularly. Civility is the foundation to nursing practice, similarly to the other delivery of care professions. Unconscious bias and cultural competency and tolerance are fixed within the curriculum, regardless of the degree. It is also embedded within all of the School of Nursing's marketing. For example, the lanyard reads, "Everyday interactions equal lifelong impacts," as a constant reminder of the impact of civility. Upon meeting with the leadership, it was very clear that one of Dr. Kirschling's mission was to make the School of Nursing inclusive and diverse, and in order to do that, she advocated for a dean that embodies these values, Dr. Jeffrey Ash. The school has become one of the most diverse nursing programs in the United States for both faculty and students. Staff and faculty engage in diversity inclusion training about 4 to 5 times a year, and efforts are being made to have specific trainings and seminars for students as well. Under the leadership of both Dr. Ash and Dean Kirschling, the School of Nursing has won the prestigious and competitive Higher Education Excellence in Diversity Award, also known as the HEED Award, for 2 years in a row, which is a rare accomplishment. This is one of many successes in excellence. Each of the programs housed in the School of Nursing is a top 10 program in the United States. My program, the Clinical Nurse Leader Program, is number 2. The School of Nursing also has been recognized for its innovation to the field. The informatics program is the first nursing informatics program in the United States. The School of Nursing supports many interdisciplinary collaborative efforts, such as research, education, and practice partnerships amongst staff, faculty, students, and of course, the Baltimore community. This collaborative environment has given students the opportunity to learn outside the classroom through research, interdisciplinary community clinics, internships, and externships. Lastly, the School of Nursing fosters leaders. Many of the faculty hold statewide and national leadership positions outside the School of Nursing, and students are mentored by these leaders. They are also encouraged to take on leadership opportunities at the School of Nursing, UMB, and their community. Examples include sitting on the Curriculum or Judicial Committee and the Policy Summit, where students can learn about health policy and advocate for change to legislators on Capitol Hill. Next slide.
We chose the core value of collaboration to represent the graduate school. Collaboration is a value that increases the caliber of research conducted at UMB's graduate programs. We felt that we would be remiss not to mention Empower, which is the Maryland Strategic Partnership that combines the resources at UMB as well as University of Maryland College Park to serve our local and global communities. Since its inception in 2012, Empower has facilitated hundreds of collaborations within its 25 programs, initiatives, and centers. These partnerships have produced 595 joint research proposals at the time that we wrote this paper, 163 of which have been awarded, totaling over $200 million in research funds, which is a massive increase from just one joint research proposal prior to this program's inception. For the graduate school specifically, we focused on the GRID, or the Graduate Research Innovation District. This is a unique center that empowers students to be at the forefront of collaboration at the university. The GRID provides the unique opportunity for students, entrepreneurs, faculty, and staff to work together to launch new companies in an effort to bring innovative health and social impact ideas to life through education, early stage funding, and programming. This center is unique in that it allows students to be at the forefront of forging partnerships across UMB schools. For example, collaborations with the law school and the graduate program to help students and members of UMB's community better understand patent law. The GRID also leverages Baltimore's local assets by partnering with local businesses to provide other educational opportunities for students and to help them better understand the community that we're all a part of. All in all, we felt that this really embodied a culture of collaboration down to its core at all levels across the school and our local community. Next slide, please.
The School of Law was selected to highlight the core value of diversity. As a student, it is clear that the law school embraces diversity from the first day of orientation. Dean Donald Tobin introduces himself at orientation and then identifies his preferred pronouns. When he does so, he explains to the incoming student body why it is important for us to identify ourselves with our preferred pronouns. By doing this, he signals to the student body from the first day at the university the School of Law's expectations of how diversity and inclusion is embraced by the school. This is the philosophy taken by the School of Law when embracing diversity. Our leadership sets the expectation of inclusion, and that becomes the culture within the school. Beyond making inclusion part of the culture at our school, the School of Law has made diversity and inclusion a priority through programming. Also at orientation, students meet Dean Russell McLean, who is the School of Law's Dean of Diversity and Inclusion. He explains his open door policy and lays out different resources for students on campus. One of those resources is our Academic Achievement Fellows Program, which allows upper-level students to teach first-year students study skills which make them more successful throughout their time at the university. Finally, the honor code at the School of Law is emphasized and is held with the utmost respect by students and faculty. Due to the ethical and character requirements of legal licensure, our honor code holds students to a high standard of ethics and character, which includes respecting others. Overall, the law school embraces diversity through our leadership setting expectations of inclusion to faculty, staff, and students, and acting in accordance to those expectations while holding our community accountable when a member is not fully embracing our values. Next slide.
The School of Social Work also represents excellent implementation of the core value of diversity. Prior to matriculation, students take an online History of Oppressions course, which has been refocused on the history of African Americans in Baltimore as a part of the effort to have a more explicit curriculum within the School of Social Work. To ensure that this knowledge serves as a foundation of future practice, the students will also take Structural Oppression as a full-length course to investigate intersectionality and systemic issues. In order to facilitate instruction throughout their educational career at the School of Social Work, faculty have beta tested the Structural Oppression course, and the School of Social Work has also added a series of courses for faculty. These courses are designed to prepare faculty to engage with students and reinforce concepts that they have been learning. Finally, the School of Social Work is searching for a Dean of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and they have also created the new position of Assistant Dean of Administration and Strategic Initiatives to continue to move the School of Social Work forward. Next slide, please.
The School of Pharmacy was chosen to showcase the core value of excellence because of the various programs the school provides and its students. For example, the school has focused pathway programs to allow students to gain more exposure in areas they may be particularly interested in. For example, the Pharmapreneurship Pathway was recently started to help students with a creative and entrepreneurial mindset further cultivate their ideas. The school now offers interprofessional courses in integrative medicine, which allows students to understand the impact of lifestyle modifications and medication therapeutics for improved health. Additionally, a new master's program in medical cannabis science and therapeutics welcomed its first class this school year. It is the first graduate program in the United States that's dedicated to the study of medical cannabis. The school also recognizes the achievements of its students through honor societies, such as Rho Chi, which is an academic honor society, and Phi Lambda Sigma, which is a leadership honor society. Next slide.
The School of Dentistry is committed to the creation, dissemination, and application of knowledge. The first and second years of the curriculum, which included active coursework and lab work, prepare students for their third and fourth years, which are clinically based. Students work directly with patients and provide them with comprehensive treatment plans tailored to their needs. The purpose statement of the school, which reads, "Advancing oral health, improving lives," goes to show the importance of having the knowledge and skill set needed to provide the best care for patients in efforts to improve their quality of life. There is no better way to advance oral health than by educational efforts, such as students teaching patients how to care for their oral health so their treatments can be sustainable and worthwhile. Typically, a patient's treatment plan is broken down into 5 phases. systemic, acute, disease control, definitive, and maintenance. Students use their knowledge to guide patients in their decision-making processes and prioritize the order of their treatment. They are assessed and critiqued on the delivery of their education to patients through clinical competencies, administered by faculty. Clinical competencies test student skill sets so they are ready to work independently in the community upon graduation. Moreover, they allow students to be confident and comfortable teaching community members about oral health through various initiatives such as Impressions Day and the UMB Cure Scholars Program, which prospective students are given the chance to tour the school and participate in hands-on workshops to get a glimpse of what dentistry is all about. The Office of Research Development provides programs and services designed to meet the needs of all student researchers. They are exposed to premier innovation in the field of dentistry by working under faculty coming from heavily research-oriented backgrounds. They have the option of conducting research in many fields, including but not limited to neural pain sciences, oncology, microbiology, and infectious diseases. Predoctoral students also have the ability of participating in the summer research training program, where they have the opportunity to gain hands-on biomedical research experience under the mentorship of faculty who are actively engaged in research. Not to mention, the dental school ranked 7th nationally for NIH funding in 2018. Uniquely, the School of Dentistry provides students with the opportunity to join clerkships. The clerkship is an elective program that allows selected fourth-year students to pursue further studies in departmental activities, specially designed to meet their needs and interests. Clerkships, such as oral surgery, endodontics, and orthodontics, allow students to gain more experience and knowledge in those fields. Students devote a portion of their clinic time to these specialized programs, and the remaining clinic time is spent in the regular program. Externships are another way that the School of Dentistry promotes the enhancement of knowledge. Students are expected to work in either hospitals, private practice, or government facilities for a period of time in their senior year to gain real-world exposure with patients and procedures. In addition, students have the option of completing dual degree programs, which build on the school's tradition of attracting and cultivating high-caliber dental students. For an additional 1 year, students can choose a master's in clinical research or a master's in public health. And for an additional 3 to 4 years, students can obtain a combined DDS and PhD degree. Next slide.
We wanted to investigate not only how our institution incorporates the core values, but also if our core values are being properly reflected outward. Currently, UMB holds high national rankings, and our faculty are being recognized with local, national, and international awards, encompassing leadership, knowledge, collaboration, and excellence. A large indicator of our success is the increase in grant funding, where UMB procured more than $667.4 million in funding in 2018. We also investigated how we are represented in written press. We found that the local news outlets are generally supportive of the school, with several instances of articles highlighting our success and contribution to the community. Nationally, however, searching for UMB brings up stories associated with the University of Maryland Medical Center. As a side recommendation, we suggest investigating the brandings of these institutions. Next slide, please.
So for this next section, we're going to cover the negative side of our findings and our recommendations. A brief summary of the negative side of our findings. First and foremost, we found that there was no standardized system to evaluate the current practices based on core values. This was important to us because when we first came together as a group, we immediately recognized that we were incredibly proud of our individual schools and their efforts, but that those same efforts weren't being made across all 7 schools. Next, we realized that there was a general lack of knowledge among students. So we've covered a lot of programming that exists in each of our schools directly related to the core values. But for some of this programming, we were unaware of it before coming to this project. And we find that many of our peers don't know that this programming is available either. In addition, we found that some of the existing programming can be unnecessarily inaccessible, meaning that a lot of this programming has to be pursued as an extracurricular and in some instances could be better incorporated into our curriculum. And finally, in some instances, we found that there was a general reluctance to kind of begin to restructure any of these entities based on our evaluations of the core values or through the lens of interprofessional. Next slide, please. So here we have a graphic that you can find in our paper, and we felt that this captured what was truly the center of the negative side of our findings, which is ultimately that there is a problematic misalignment regarding the implementation of the core values across all 7 schools. So this figure shows values that exist in each school that are offshoots of our core values. And of course, we recognize that the implementation of core values will differ across professions. However, professional distinctions are no excuse for some of the separate core values in disparate definition that we found in our search. For example, diversity is a university core value, yet certain schools have a definition of diversity that differs from what the university has defined, and in some cases is less thoughtful. Some schools have a dean of diversity, while others do not. And for us, this brought out the question of what does it really mean to honor those core values, and how do these varying practices contribute to disparate experiences for students in their individual schools. So ultimately, our central finding in this paper was that we cannot institutionalize the core values until we begin to act as one cohesive institution. Next slide, please. So now we'll cover some of those recommendations individually. And ultimately, our goal here is to make our educational experience feel more collaborative and interprofessional. We also wanted to address the failure of the core values to reach the individual schools due to the operational structure of UMB. And what we really mean there is that each school operates on its own. And if we begin to collaborate in how we operate as an institution across our 7 schools, we really think that these core values can be institutionalized well and carried out for several years to come. Next slide, please.
Our first recommendation is to change the value of accountability to integrity. When investigating the core values, we found this to be reactionary. The Army defines integrity as do what's right legally and morally. We believe that changing this value will cause students, faculty, and staff to carefully consider the impact of their actions prior to committing them. And as Anika said, there are currently no means to evaluate how core values are implemented within the schools and on campus. There is a student survey, however, it focuses heavily on diversity, but all the core values are equally important. We cannot set benchmarks and evaluate our progress without regular assessment, which was highlighted by a number of the President's Seminar Speaker Series this year. Next slide, please.
While UMB has made strides in engaging students, faculty, and staff in civility, we have recommended a series of changes that can better facilitate this process and make this core value more accessible to everyone in the UMB family. The first being a student welcome video. As prospective students choose UMB to be their home, they are most eager to learn about the university, especially before their UMB commitments begin to accumulate. This is the perfect time to introduce UMB, its resources, and the core values. Secondly, we recommend a standardized orientation. Every student, regardless of field of study, should be initiated to the university with the same information. This will allow all the students to start their UMB journey with the same knowledge and accessibility to UMB resources. We understand that orientation is done at different times depending on the program. As a result, we suggest that a representative from UMB Student Affairs or the President's Office attend each of the orientations to present consistent UMB information. Lastly, we suggest converting the campus center to a student center. Research has suggested that a student center helps make the campus feel more like a community. In this scenario, the student center would include an expanded market with the ability to purchase groceries, access to healthy food options and caffeine during the hours of the Health Sciences and Human Services library hours, a gaming space to help distress, activities such as movie nights, crafting projects, and game nights, meditation pods, and booth-like seating and space for interactive and collaborative study. Next slide.
For collaboration, we felt that it would be beneficial to find a university-level student interest group. So across each of the schools individually, there are student groups that advocate for issues that are unique to their discipline and addressing those in their schools. We feel that our Graduate Student Association in the graduate school and other groups like this across campus could serve as an example of what this might look like at the university-wide level. This would be a group of student leaders who would advocate for university-wide student interests, similar to the President's Fellows, to continue to advocate for accomplishing larger scale goals in the interest of student education and campus culture. Our other interest in collaboration was in further developing our efforts in interprofessional education and integrating interprofessional education as a standard of our education across the 7 schools. So what we mean here is to allow for better collaboration across the 7 schools in the places where our education naturally overlaps. For example, in our ethics courses. This would give us a better handle on what to expect when we face obstacles in our careers, because when it comes down to it, the real world is interprofessional. As a researcher, the questions of ethics that I face will of course involve other researchers, but may also involve questions of law and intellectual property. And for those reasons, we feel that that's a place where, without a drastic change to curriculum, we can integrate interaction with the law school. Next slide, please.
One way that the university could embrace diversity is ensuring that all members have equal opportunity to excel within their fields. To do so, it would make sense to assess the promotion and pay equity of all employees across the university. Additionally, while the School of Law and the School of Nursing have deans of diversity and inclusion, diversity is a core value that the university would better embrace if other schools also had faculty that were focused specifically on diversity and inclusion, as well as the university as a whole. Finally, to embody the value of diversity, all voices need to be heard when they're at the table. One way to do so will be to create a more formalized avenue of feedback to the administration. A creation of a student advisory council to the president would create another way for the administration to ask questions of students similar to the one that we were asked, and the administration would be able to receive more immediate feedback. Students would also be able to offer more informed feedback through a continuous dialogue with the university. Next slide, please.
So at UMB, students and faculty work hard to show their commitment to excellence. But as a community, we must do a better job of highlighting our achievements. One of our suggestions is for UMB to host a community conference where students and faculty conducting research and completing other initiatives could submit their work to be chosen and displayed. This would serve as a way to build community as well as demonstrate our commitment to knowledge and excellence. We are also suggesting that we honor a student of the month, quarter, and year at the institutional level. So we have seen this done within individual schools and programs and with faculty, but we don't recognize the work and effort of students that go above and beyond their studies. Recognizing excellence will help breed a culture of students striving for more excellence. Next slide, please.
Faculty and students at UMB come from a multitude of different backgrounds, and a baseline understanding of those backgrounds, especially for instructors, is crucial to forming a more inclusive environment. Therefore, we suggest making the diversity training currently being administered in the School of Social Work available to all faculty. In the 2018 UMB Student Campus Climate Survey, 35% of students agreed or strongly agreed with the statement, "I think faculty prejudge my abilities based on my identity or background." This training should also be mandatory for all newly hired faculty. By integrating this training and adding it to the onboard process for all new hires, inclusion will be added to the culture of UMB. Furthermore, preparing students to work with many different populations effectively should be a priority at UMB. The School of Social Work offers a newly designed structural impression course that covers a wide range of disparate groups and oppression throughout history. The courses focus on the experiences of African Americans in Baltimore and prepare students to best interact with their clients before they arrive in Baltimore. This course should be made mandatory for all incoming students, as it is important for them to understand the history of Baltimore and its people. Not only will this give students additional cultural exposure, it'll prepare students for their potential clients and patients. In order for students to process and internalize this information, there should be a follow-up session during orientation in which students can synthesize their understandings from what was learned. We have a great opportunity here at UMB in that we've recruited a diverse array of leaders to train and educate students. By utilizing the experience and knowledge of faculty, students have a chance to learn their profession and gain insight from future collaborators. With an integrated IPE course for all UMB students, they can begin their careers with experience and feel comfortable interacting with other professionals. Interprofessional education gives students the opportunity to learn about other disciplines and incorporate other perspectives into their future practices. In the past, former UMB President Brandt initiated integrating an IPE course called Critical Issues in Healthcare, which is focused on developing policy to address challenges in healthcare. This course has been offered for 30 years and was approved by each school in order to be offered to their students. In this course, students are able to work in small groups to discuss and present solutions to healthcare concerns. We propose expanding the current courses offered in the UMB course catalog to include more interprofessional courses. Students will be motivated to attend courses in which they'll receive credit, and they'll also have the opportunity to work directly with other students to solve problems and gain perspective. We also suggest inviting faculty from other schools in the institution to present at individual program seminars and speaker series. The goal would be to give students as many opportunities as possible to interact with and learn from students in other disciplines. Next slide, please.
When meeting with Interim President Dr. Gerald to discuss the status of our project, he had several ideas for the future of UMB, which he proposed to us. We think that the president should have the opportunity to meet with students who can discuss the student experience on campus and how programming can be the most effective in student life. We are proposing the formation of the President's Student Advisory Council to accomplish these goals. We know we have made several suggestions throughout this presentation, which are multifaceted and have a far reach. To facilitate some of these recommendations, we suggest for the creation of a new position, Executive Director for Student Affairs. This person would work directly with the President and offices of student affairs of the individual schools to ensure that the UMB student experience is consistent and long-lasting. We believe that this position would go a long way with connecting the schools and creating a more collegial, collaborative environment. Next slide, please.
And finally, with our recommendations done, we wanted to acknowledge some of the ongoing efforts at the university that we weren't able to cover in our paper that we felt really embodied the spirit of the core values. So this year was the first Core Values Awards, which we felt was an important step in sort of standardizing our expectations for the implementation of the core values. So just as important as evaluating how well we're practicing the core values is rewarding those who we feel like truly embody them. Next, we wanted to acknowledge the creation of the Intercultural Leadership and Engagement Center, which we feel is a powerful first step in providing a space for programming and strategic partnership between faculty, staff, and administrators to help create a more inclusive climate on campus. And most recently, with the COVID-19 outbreak, we wanted to acknowledge the efforts made by the UMB community to help supply DNA extraction kits, gloves, masks, and other things to help support the mission of the hospital and COVID researcher. And of course, UMB's own researchers who have been recognized as national leaders in the fight against COVID-19 help to contribute to our external perception of expertise, of excellence, leadership, and knowledge. Next slide, please.
To conclude, when making recommendations, especially in regard to increased programming, we are not making recommendations for the sake of programming's sake. We are looking to collaborate between the schools where there are already natural overlaps between our disciplines. As a future lawyer, I will not work exclusively with other lawyers. I will need to work with those from other disciplines, and having exposure during school will benefit students in their given career paths by understanding how interprofessional education works in their future careers. By integrating interprofessional education to our existing coursework when it makes sense, students will be more prepared to work with others in the future. We also chose to highlight each school in our paper as a way to show ways that our schools are already meeting the students' needs and how student needs could be met more equitably across campus by adopting policies that already exist within our own institution. Finally, by assessing our core values through this paper, we will be able to adapt our core values to our current school population and needs to ensure that our values persist into a lasting culture within the university. Next slide, please.
First and foremost, we would like to extend our appreciation to Chancellor Perman for establishing this unique President's Fellow opportunity, and Interim President Gerald for enthusiastically willing to continue the project despite the change in leadership. We also want to express our sincere gratitude to all of our deans, assisting deans, and supporting staff for enabling us to complete the project. Your willingness to meet, time, and feedback have undoubtedly been quintessential in allowing us to gain the information we need about our respective schools and present that information to the university at large. We also want to give a special thanks to Greg for supporting us through this entire process. Greg, without your kind direction and proper guidance, this project would have been a little success. Thank you to our faculty advisor, Mr. Norm Augustine, for all of his invaluable advice, leadership, and time. We learned a lot from his experiences and are grateful to have had him along this process. We also want to thank Angela Jackson and James Wright for helping us write and design our paper, organize our vision, and effectively deliver our message. And last but certainly not least, we want to extend our thanks to our guest speakers for their wonderful presentations, which have helped us immensely in constructing our final paper and presentation. Thank you so much, as none of this would have been possible without your continued support.
Well, I, for one, would love to congratulate the six of you for presenting. You cannot hear the applause right now, but I know wholeheartedly that there are 90-something people right now sitting at their houses applauding you exuberantly. We would like to open this up now for some question and answer opportunities for individuals who are attending this. The way we're going to do this, we're going to utilize the chat function. And so you can either message me directly through the chat feature with your question, or you can message it out to everyone. Please, if you message me independently and you do not want your name attached to your question, please say, do not attach my name to this question. I'm going to try to facilitate as many questions as we can, but I'm only going to dedicate about 15 minutes-ish for some question and answer so that you all have some time to think about it and listen to some of the amazing findings that these students have. Also, I encourage you to take your time to review the white paper that these students wrote. I can't encourage you enough. It is a fantastic document that is well researched, well written, and beautifully put together. So take some time to read that. That will also answer some of your questions and give you a really great roadmap on how we as an institution can implement these core values. Now, with that being said, I would love to open it up in the chat for you all to ask some questions of our fellows.
Greg, am I on a live mic here?
Yes, you are, Dr. Gerald. Would you like me to give you the
thanks to all of you? I very much enjoyed what you wrote, and I enjoyed what you presented. I wanted to ask if you could elaborate on one thing. There are many things. I've got a long list, but there was one thing in particular. So you talked on several occasions about a student group advising the president. Whether that was a student interest, an interest group, or whether that was about the environment among student activities, student affairs, even the campus center. My question is, did you talk about how does that relate to the Student Government Association? So are we talking about two separate things, or did you see how did you see that mix occurring if we had a second? Or is it a second group?
I can speak to this a little bit. I attended College Park, University of Maryland at College Park for undergrad. And we had our SGA, their student government at the university, and then each of the individual schools had dean's advisory councils there. So I was in the School of Behavioral and Social Science, so we had a dean's advisory council in that specific school. So when we met with you, we were really encouraged by the amount of questions that you had substantively about different university efforts. And we appreciated that conversation and wanted to keep that conversation going. So we envisioned this more being a sort of kind of dean's advisory council. While the SGA does a lot for student interest, this would be more of an avenue for the administration to be able to directly ask students in a way that didn't really have to do with student programming per se, because the Student Government Association at our school does a lot of programming efforts for students. This would be more mirroring what we were doing this year, kind of a way to continue on this project in the future, given that the white paper topic next year does not continue this effort, and our core values, to make them a culture, requires a continual assessment.
So the group would, the group, how would the group get chosen is a different issue, but the group would really be focused on core values as a fundamental part of this university, not above and beyond, but in parallel to the other, as you say, operational programmatic things that a USGA or other groups might bring in. Is that the essence? Is it really focused on core values, or does it spill into other areas? Positive areas, of course.
I think it would be guided by however the president, yourself, or whomever would take that role would choose to use this advisory council. What questions you would have for students, what things you would want a direct student input in, with a group that would be chosen by either your office, or we proposed a dean of student affairs to continue that effort. So I think that could be explored with how the president would find a group of continual student voices the most effective. So I think you would have a lot of discretion in how this council would be formed.
Well, I like the idea a lot. I wanted to be representative, obviously, and I kind of like the idea of focusing on core values, because in the end, if we make core values work right, we will make the university work right. And I think that's sort of your message here. And it's not that it's not working right now, it's working great, but it could be much better than it's working now, particularly around the core values. And that's what I heard from you. So I will take that one to heart, but I don't want to hog all the time. So Greg, you probably got other people with questions. Thank you for that, though. Thank you.
I'm going to try to go through the list of people who notified me that they're interested in asking a question. Lisa Medina, you asked a question. I'm going to unmute you, because unless you say otherwise, so that you can ask the fellows your question. The mic is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I had asked to have you read it because it's a little bit noisy where I am. But in any case, my question was actually to Dr. Jarrell. What was your perspective, or what are your thoughts on their recommendation for changing accountability to integrity?
You wanted me to answer that?
I just wanted to know what your I wouldn't mind hearing from the students more about that recommendation, but I wanted to know if you had any thoughts as well.
Oh, I think it's a fabulous perspective. It changes exactly what they said from a retrospective point of view to a prospective point of view. And of course, accountability does come under integrity in any event, but integrity is the general principle. And it's research integrity, it's financial integrity, it's a whole lot of integrities. So I like the idea. Now, having said that, we're at a university and you need a lot of points of input and deliberation before you change your core values. I like the idea a lot. So for the students.
I'll take this one. I felt really strongly about this recommendation simply because of my service in the Army. And I knew ahead of time that you have to think about your actions before you take them. When I was reading about the core values and seeing how they were implemented across the schools, it seemed like it was act first and then ask questions and think about how it will impact others. And if you think through your decisions prior to their actions, you already know what the potential consequences will be, and you'll plan and evaluate for that. So I felt really strongly about changing the core value from accountability to integrity.
Thank you. We're going to move to our next question. I have a question from Dr. Patty Alvarez, who said, we look forward to reviewing your recommendations in more detail and implementing many. I would welcome the opportunity to consult with you in the future. Can you share your initial thoughts about the values as a student prior to your work on this project as a fellow, and your hope for the meaning the values will have in the future for other students?
I can take this question. So I think that when we first started this project, our initial perspective on the values were that I think we all kind of felt proud of what the values were. And so I think that you probably noticed that apart from changing accountability to integrity, we didn't discuss very much about addressing the values or their definitions themselves, because we felt that they strongly represented that they were very strongly defined, that they were clearly defined, and that they really didn't leave much room for question, and that they embodied the totality of what we feel a university culture should be. That being said, prior to finding out about this project and looking into the core values more, I personally wouldn't have been able to name all 7 of them, or to give you the university defined definitions. And so that was also something that we wanted to address initially as well. And we mentioned at the beginning of the negative side of our findings is that we feel that the university has made a great effort to be very clear and explicit, but we also felt that students weren't necessarily informed. And so something that we struggled with a lot from the beginning of this project and even now is this question of what is the university's responsibility to inform us, and then what is our responsibility to be informed. So a lot of the information that we found was readily available to us, and we didn't necessarily have to go through too many hurdles. But if you don't know it until you go to look for it, how well are those values really being incorporated into the culture?
Thank you. We have another question by Patrick Bavoli, and it is, the core values represent ideals that too often are easily corrupted. Academia is full of examples of individuals who, under a surface of civility, behave vainly or even treacherously. How does one ensure that the core values are true to what they are supposed to represent?
I think that as we continue to model the core values, especially with the core value awards and potentially recognizing students for their efforts throughout their career of education, we'll start to realize exactly how the core values should be embodied and hopefully start to internalize them ourselves. The UMB website and like Anika said, is very explicit in what the core values are, what their definitions are, but they also give examples of how the core values should look in your practice, your research, or your daily interactions. So if someone is not actually acting on the core values, hopefully we can create a culture where it will be reflected back to them that you're not in line with UMB, you're not in line with our core values, and this is not how we operate here.
I'm going to follow that up with another question. Diane Marie St. George said that they want to understand or ask whether you all felt that the core values are resonated equally across all of the schools.
One of the things that we thought greatly about when we first started tackling this project was how are the core values lacking in a school, or if what we might perceive at first as a core value not being brought to the surface as much, if that's a difference in discipline. So we also had to consider how our disciplines impact which values are most relevant to us. So that's one area that we looked at. We highlighted a lot of different positive things from our different schools. So I think different schools have different strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes that's attributed to the differences and what are called for in our disciplines.
If I can add to that point also, I think that something that maybe takes a little bit more critical thinking about is this idea that Nina was talking about, that, for example, the law school and School of Social Work embody diversity particularly well. And it's very clear to see why in that profession, that value would be at the forefront, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be at the forefront for other professions. And so I think another part of that is evaluating sort of our biases in how we conduct ourselves in our business and in our education, and where we naturally leave sort of these holes to be filled, and just not thinking about how we're embodying those core values. And so some things may get swept under the rug because they're not at the forefront of our minds when we think about how our professions should operate or do operate.
Kind of just piggybacking off of Anika, I think that the school as a whole, Chancellor Perman has done a great job in initiating and implementing the core values and trying to integrate the schools as one. He has a multitude of initiatives ranging from President Student Leadership Institution, the UMB Health Alliance, UMB Cure Scholars. So I don't think the problem is necessarily at the top. What we think the issue is it's not really connecting and resonating with the students. So there's sort of a disconnect that's happening. And that's why we believe that it's so important to model ourselves as one university instead of 7 separate entities, to kind of form that inclusive environment where students from other schools are integrating and learning from one another and conversing and tackling issues together. So we believe that with a cohesive, more inclusive environment, it'll be easier to resonate with those values.
Fantastic. We've had another question from one of the attendees. They said, thank you, well done, excellent observations. How do you see the Executive Director of Student Affairs being different from the position of Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, which is currently held by Dr. Patty Alvarez?
So we came up with this position because I spoke to some of the staff in different positions, and I asked if this was an actual line of communication. If the Office of Student Affairs were able to communicate with UMB. And as far as I was told, there was no position like that there was no direct student affairs person that worked directly with the president. There was several layers in between that person. So I think the major distinction that we wanted to highlight is that this person would fall directly under the president and be a part of the executive suite, bringing the student experience up to the university level, and then bringing the culture that the university level wants to have back down to the student level. Just cutting out a lot of the extra communication issues, and then making sure that the president's vision is embraced by all of the schools and not just some of the schools.
I also think in a little bit of a simpler way for this title, along with all of our other recommendations, as we were coming up with these ideas, we did run them by the individuals in faculty and staff who they would most likely affect. And I think a large part of what it boiled down to is that we didn't want to give one person who already has a job at UMB 12 more things to add to their list of responsibilities, because then they wouldn't really be able to effectively do that job. And so while we do have individuals on campus who may have related work, we wanted to be sure that we were clear and explicit in stating that we wanted this to be a priority for one individual on campus.
We have one more question. Do you all see leaving accountability as is and adding integrity as its own value?
I think if you add integrity to replace accountability, you won't need to be accountable if you're already thinking with integrity and acting with integrity.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any more questions? We still have some time left for you all to learn more about what these fantastic student leaders know about core values. I know Cindy Rice, you noted that you had a question, so I'm going to unmute you. If you don't have a question, you don't have to say anything. Cindy, do you have a question?
Hold on. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. That was just a fabulous presentation. I enjoyed every single word of it. Every slide that you presented was really fantastic. Two questions, really. One, will the slides be available after the presentation today?
Yes, we are currently recording this, so we're going to have the presentation showcased on the website soon, as well as the white paper, which we'll be sharing in its virtual format.
Okay. And then my other question was, in your research, ladies, and when you were looking for currently what exists at UMB, because I was a little taken aback by the fact that you guys don't seem to know that there is a campus-wide University Student Government Association that combines representatives from all of the different schools and programs on campus to advocate on behalf of all currently enrolled students, full and part-time, at UMB. And so I was wondering, were you just not aware of the fact that that existed, or would this new student council that you are introducing to advise the president, would they somehow be kind of a collaborative group with the campus-wide USGA? Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Oh, you can go ahead, Adrian.
So I wanted to make a delineation between a couple of our recommendations. The university-wide student interest groups was proposed, and I think it's better explained in our paper, but we have several student groups on campus in individual schools, and I'm going to use the example of the Student National Medical Association, which is a medical group specifically focusing on pipelines to get minority students engaged in medicine. But that also exists at the dental school, the pharmacy school, the School of Pharmacy, and the School of Law. If there were a university level minority association, we would be able to collaborate on larger projects and talk to each other about how we're implementing our own plans and maybe share ideas with these students. So that was that recommendation, the university level student interest groups. Now, the Student Advisory Council, we would like it to be a separate entity from USGA. I knew USGA existed. That's not something that I was not aware of. But what I'm not aware of is the interaction between USGA and the president. So that may be why we made this suggestion about that, but it was more so about the fact that we sat with interim president, Dr. Gerald, and he was so excited and had so many ideas. And it was like he was very excited to be able to talk to students directly. And we wanted to have the president to be able to have the opportunity to interact with students and run ideas past them or get their feedback on a regular basis. That's why we made that suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, can I mention again? So Adrian, thanks for saying that, because I do like direct communication with the students. It's kind of part of my existence. I did have one or two other things to mention here because, and I don't know whether Dr. Ward's in the audience or not. I know he had some conflicting things. We had talked about should there be an eighth core value, and the core value that we were thinking about was, since we've become such a global oriented campus, when you think about our programs in Africa in Chile and in a lot of other countries, particularly now that COVID's around. It again shows the relevance. Go through the list: COVID, Zika, Ebola, chikungunya. There's a whole bunch of different viruses, and it's by default made us a global kind of place. So one of the things that we've had in our minds is that another core value, our commitment to the global community. The other thing that sort of happened, sort of simultaneous, but spurred by our meeting back in January, was an idea around the orientation concept of a thing called convocation. Now, I don't know, for those of you who have been at other universities, whether you had a convocation or not, but a convocation was a bringing together of the entire university at the beginning of the academic year, as opposed to graduation, which of course we're all getting cheated out of this year, aren't we? But it was to bring the university together at the beginning and say, hey, yes, we're a university, we stand for these things, let's celebrate it, etc. And so Dr. Ward and I have been, and others have been having a lot of discussion about whether this is an important part of our university that's been missing. So now COVID has put such a curveball on everything that I don't know what we're going to be able to do yet. But those kinds of things, I think, are part, certainly not all, but part of what you're addressing, to say we are UMB, this is a university, we need to have that component as well as the excellence of the schools. And the concept here isn't that you detract from the schools. The concept here is that you maintain the excellence of the schools, but build the visibility and the, again, the excellence of the entire university. So I think that's kind of what our thinking has been. Roger, you're not listening?
Dr. Ward is here, and I can unmute him.
Oh, unmute him, please.
Dr. Ward, the mic is yours now.
I'm tired of going to meetings where I try to listen and stay in the background, and President Gerald keeps putting me on the spot. But so since I'm on the spot, let me say, as Cindy said and as others have said, I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. It was very well done, quite informative. Been fortunate to be around since the inception of these with former President Perman, now Chancellor Perman, and I'm always impressed every year as to how much time and effort the students, the fellows put into the project and how well they deliver on the project. And as Dr. Gerald said, President Gerald said earlier on, what we get, the recommendations that have come out of these presentations over the last several years have been numerous, and many of them have led to things that you see on the campus today, including the grade as perhaps one of the more recent examples. As it relates to the core values and whether we should substitute accountability with integrity and whether we should add global, which of course is a very credible idea, those would be conversations, as again, Dr. Gerald suggested, that we would have to have as a university community. And we actually have an opportunity to do so over the next year, because as timing would have it, we need to enter into the planning for a new strategic plan. Our current strategic plan expires within the year. Obviously, we're dealing with COVID, and so that's going to influence the plan. But at the beginning of every planning process, one of the first things we do with the deans, with the vice president, with shared governance, is re-examine our values and make a determination as to whether or not we want to tweak them and so on. And we didn't the last time around, which was coming up on 5 years ago. But this time around, we'll go through the same exercise. And it's possible, given the recommendation from this white paper, that that we will give that some serious thought. And of course, like we always do, get input and feedback from faculty, staff, and students before making that decision. But it is a very interesting recommendation.
Okay, Greg, it's yours.
Well, I think we have one more question, and I think then we will wrap it up. Alice Liu has asked a question. So Alice, I'm going to let you have the mic right now. So I'm going to unmute you. Alice, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Everyone can hear you, so the mic is yours.
Okay, awesome. So my question is about your perspectives from your 7 schools. I'm wondering, how did this inform your research? And although the result has been overwhelmingly positive, did you have any conflicts or disagreements at any time?
So I'll start. I'm Marina from the School of Nursing. So entering the School of Nursing and even entering this project as a whole, I had no idea about nearly, anything that was going on in the School of Nursing until I got involved into this project. And so one of the things that I really left this project sort of, with the idea of is the fact that there really needs to be communication or inform, just streamlining all the way down to the students. I was really fortunate because Dean Kirschling, Dr. Ash, and Dr. Mills were so incredibly nice and so helpful. And even when I'd email them super late, they would respond really quickly. And they really wanted to, sort of put their input and help me understand the School of Nursing better. And I even left Dean Kirschling's office saying, I think that if people really knew what was going on at UMB or even at the School of Nursing, we would have so much, it would just be a totally different shift. So I was very fortunate because I had a really, really supportive school that helped everything that I needed with.
I think overall, from the start of our project, we were very good about sort of acknowledging each other's expertise and perspectives. And so we could have had disagreements in the implementation of the core values or things like that if we had tackled this project in sort of a different way. But from the beginning, I think we each chose to only speak to our expertise, only speak to our school. And so there really was no room for agreement when we approached it in that way. And then the other part of it as well was that, as we've stated several times, the university is very clear in all of its definitions. So whether we agreed with them or not, it really didn't leave room for interpretation. And so I think that was a very good starting place to kind of facilitate an easy process for us throughout this project.
I'm going to jump in as well. It became very clear as we started to have discussions that the student experience in each school was very different. For example, the School of Medicine has their orientation in the campus center, whereas the School of Law doesn't have interviews and they don't tour the campus before they start. So the students in the law school didn't know that the campus center existed unless they stumbled on it by accident. So as we began to discuss, that's when we realized that each of our schools operates in its own individual silo. And that just kind of directed the rest of our paper. It wouldn't have been possible if we didn't just respect each other and what we bring to the table, and recognizing that my experience may not be your experience, but that's the point of our paper, is to try and make it one institution instead of our own individual experiences.
I just wanted to add one thing to Adrian's. Since I am from the School of Law, I also work at URECFIT, so I see who tours the gym regularly. I sit at the front desk there, and while the School of Law does offer tours, you just don't have to. It's not part of your interview. It's not part of you becoming admitted. So I just wanted to speak to that. Also, we all buy books at the campus center, but it's less formalized. So I think what Adrian's speaking to is that we all have very different experiences, some of which is just proximity to different resources at school, with the hospital being right next to the campus center, while the School of Law is a few blocks away.
Well, I think go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I think that teamwork is extremely important. No team is going to be 100% perfect. I think what we learned specifically throughout our experience is the importance of interprofessional education. I think that we all had strong suits. We all had our things that we really, really, really were good at. And we also learned that sometimes it's okay for you to step down and let your colleague take the initiative on something that they might be more, well versed in. And that's something that, we really learned and that we really appreciated. And I think that, we just hope that our experiences can be experienced by other people in the community and university at large.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Well, I think with all of those wonderful things the students have shared, I would like to really say how proud I am of each of you for the work that you've done. Just so that everybody knows, I'm going to share something in the chat. This is just a short little form if you would like to fill it out. This is going to help us evaluate who attended today, as well as what your experience was with this virtual functionality. And we also appreciate your patience as we transition so much of what we do to this WebEx world that we live in right now. As we wrap up, I encourage you all to please read the white paper. So often when we embark on these journeys, we struggle to identify what is our next steps. And the students here really prepared an amazing white paper, which can act as a roadmap for each of us in looking at what our core values are and how we can implement them as a campus community. I also would like to make an exciting announcement that we have decided next year's topic, and we've actually selected 9 students to be our fellows for the 2020 to 2021 year. Now, next year's topic is going to be focused on health literacy as a social determinant of health. And this is actually going to be a partnership through Empower between UMB and College Park, where actually 8 of the students will be UMB and 1 of them will be a College Park student studying public health. And these students are going to work together starting in pretty much right now throughout the summer and conducting research. And then they're going to continue on in the fall and the spring to do a similar white paper project as these fantastic students just did. And so we're really excited for that. We have Dr. Cynthia Barr from College Park, Adrian Arthur from Empower, Dr. Elsie Steins, and of course, Courtney Jones-Carney, soon to be Dr. Carney, are helping to lead the charge for that. And so we're very, very excited. And we ask that you keep that on your radar for next year at around this time. So with all of that being said, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for spending an hour and a half listening to this amazing group of students. And we welcome any feedback that you have. Please feel free to put it in the forum. And we hope you take the time to read what these students have written, because it really is fantastic.